I asked you guys to send me the most uncomfortable questions you have about being transgender / non-binary. By the way, some of you who are watching this probably just thought I looked really, really good. Surprise, I'm on hormones. Been on it for a while now, and this is a video meant to be more of a resource. I mean, yeah, it's an open conversation between you and me in order to get to you guys to get to know me better and me to get to know you better. But also, this is just a nice video that I like, similar to that I made before, called Not Being Binary, where it's just there's a lot of misconceptions about what it's like being me and people like me. Us, I think, is the proper term. That's how you say that. Last time you guys asked me a bunch of just regular questions. This time I wanted to have no holds barred. I'm a lot more comfortable with who I am. So ask me whatever you want. This is over 100 questions. So sit back and relax and get ready. Sometimes I feel stuck between thinking I feel the way I do because society sucks or because I'm somewhere on the trans spectrum. Did you ever feel that way or struggle because of it? Honestly, kinda no. I don't think I've actually felt that way, largely because I could see other people around me who clearly don't question those sorts of things. I kind of always had the innate feeling of there's something not right about me and I need to figure out what it is. And it was just, my gender was weird. I think the most reassuring thing was always that people who are not transgender don't really question their gender. They said, like, at least not to the same depth that we do. It's not like on a daily basis or a weekly basis. It'll occupy their brain for a day or two or maybe a week, and then they're kind of done with it and they figure it out and they're like, yeah, I'm good. They definitely question their sexuality, but that's usually also quickly figured out. If you're thinking about it for a very, very long period of time, chances are that's a sign that you are. At what point did you realize your body wasn't right for you / did you realize or think that? Dang, I think it was definitely middle school. I told this to my therapist before they signed me off as having gender dysphoria, because I like the way I dress, and which is more of a kind of guy kind of style. I don't really wear dresses or skirts. But also, I kind of realized when I looked at girls, it wasn't so much attraction as more as this envy. But I think the biggest thing was when I was going through puberty, I felt super uncomfortable, which is normal. But the one thing that never went away, and this is, I went to the therapist when I was around 20, so I was past puberty, was that my Adam's apple, I never liked it. I had to get rid of it. I kept trying to push it in constantly. And I noticed, people made fun of me for it. They thought it was really weird that I did it. And I'm like, you guys don't hate this thing too? What is your experience with dysphoria like? Dysphoria is different for everyone. So if you are seeing people online who are describing this, that, or that, it will change from person to person. I know the biggest example is that when it comes to facial hair, I don't feel my typical amount of dysphoria where I'm like, oh, I'm that feeling of wearing wet socks and it's just wrong and you just want to get out of it. It's more of just, I get angry and I'm more irritable and I don't know why. And it's because I haven't shaved, and that's it. It's just because I have facial hair. And it can be small little things like that where you're not really conscious of it. But also there can be the big obvious things where it's like, oh, if I don't get out of this now, I'm going to feel awful all day. There's some that are way more obvious than others. Number 3, how would you educate people who are unaware / have false information on non-binary people? This video, kind of the point. Share this around with friends who are confused. This is kind of what I can do. Oh, I didn't mention, I told everyone that I would remove their names and profile pictures for this, because if it's uncomfortable questions, I don't want them feeling like they can't actually ask them. So one, I'm getting rid of the person who asked it, and I'm also deleting the AMA thread so that you can't figure out who asked it before, and so that you can't be traced, so that there's no risk, so that everyone feels safe. Do you ever doubt yourself about your identity? Your brain keeps telling you that you're faking it or that you're not expressing it enough? A lot. I think of that a lot. That was a big problem with me when I first started dating my partner, because she started pointing out her concept of gender is very different than mine. Mine is very gender's dumb, and I don't really think of it. Hers is she thinks of gender as very strongly as a part of her personal identity. For me, it's more of I'll pick and choose whatever I want and whenever I feel like it. So for me, not feeling like I was doing enough, that was a constant thing. But the one thing I always tried to make sure to affirm for myself was cis people don't do pills for gender transitioning. So long as I am adamant on taking my hormones. I'm pretty sure I'm safe. There isn't like a bar test of how transgender you are, how non-binary you are. And that's why a lot of people ask me, like, what is trans non-binary? I tell them I'm trans non-binary because there's a lot of people who are non-binary and don't do anything. They just identify that way. I say I'm trans non-binary because I'm going through a lot of the steps that a lot of transgender people take in order to try and skew myself more towards the middle. So I have similar experiences to people who are transgender than people who are just identifying as non-binary and that's it. I've met more people who are non-binary who just are and don't really try to change their expression of that than people who are non-binary and will actively try to present themselves as non-binary. So I say both for the sake of, one, telling myself that, like, yes, this is actually who I am. Stop doubting yourself. Stop being dumb. And two, because technically both is true. How did you know your name didn't fit you? How did you find the right name? And how is it like living as trans? Are there any everyday obstacles of living? I knew my name didn't fit me because I never liked my name. That was just a thing always with my life. It's also a very gendered name that it was. Though when I was trying to figure out a new name for myself, I was going back and forth between a lot of things, and I thought I was hovering on Quinn a lot because I like Harley Quinn a whole lot, but I'm like, there's so many people who's done that before, and it's kind of cringy to name myself after my favorite anti-hero. So I'm like, so eventually what happened is that my nephew couldn't pronounce my birth name. I'll say it like that. I couldn't pronounce my birth name. So my sister said, how about you take the first consonant and just repeat it? I don't want to say what my name is. I prefer my online identity to just be Negative Legend. So I'm sorry if I'm not going to say it. Point is, I got my name from my nephews because they couldn't pronounce my actual name. I kind of lucked out on that one. I was flip-flopping between all of them, and I'm like, this one has a cute story behind it. I'm not going to get anything better than this. I might as well just go with this. I didn't really pick my name. And how is it like living as trans? The thing is, I live in Colorado. It's a lot easier for me to live this way. The most I get are some old people looking at me weird and like confused. Other than that, it's not that hard for me. I have it a lot easier than other people. So I'm sorry if this isn't the answer you want, but this is the answer I'm going to give you. I live in a nice state that's nice towards people like me. Do you ever wear clothing that is strictly considered feminine, like skirts, dresses, and stuff? What is your opinion on how clothing is gender categorized? I think the majority of clothes are gender categorized only by their quality because women's clothes they look a lot better. Like, if you want to look good, women's clothes. If you want to look very, very unique and, like, have your own personal style, you learn to sew. If you want functionality, you buy men's clothes. That's kind of like how I see, that's kind of how I see the genderized version of clothes. The only big thing that's specifically, like, difference in terms of your sex is pants, because you buy women's pants and, one, the pockets suck, but also, like, I'm born with boy parts, wink, wink, so, it'll hurt eventually after a while wearing girls' pants, so I always typically just wear guys' pants, and I don't like wearing skirts because it's not my vibe, honestly. That's just not my vibe. How do you feel about all the anti-trans laws, and what do you think people should do to help promote trans rights? I think all the anti-trans laws are it's created by fear-mongering and by a bunch of people who have never actually sat down and talked to people who are transgender. I think what Anthony Padilla is doing, where he's creating a space for people to just talk about it, is really nice. When it comes to de-radicalizing people, that's something I don't really know how to do, and the only thing we can really show, or I can really show, is that show people, yeah, I am part of the weird ones, part of those trans people, and I am the nicest person you're ever gonna meet, and I'm gonna go out of my way to show you that I'm the nice person that you're gonna meet. I need to show them that I'm not a threat. That's the biggest thing, which is very easy for me to do because I hate being rude. So that's kind of my default anyway. I also do like the thing of people taking like direct action of putting a transgender flag sticker or a transgender person used this bathroom and no one got hurt. I think that's funny. You gotta like invade their spaces and their safe spaces in order to show them like, there is no risk. We're here. We've been here the whole time, but you're not in danger and you've never been in danger. I think it's more of just being more out there. It's very scary to be more out there and open and obvious out in public because of the fear of being hate crimed, but that's how people get normalized with this stuff by seeing it on a daily basis. Is there like a type of feeling when you transition, and not even like surgery wise? Yeah, it's called euphoria, and if you don't feel it, that's probably a sign you probably shouldn't be transitioning. For me, it was really, really exciting when I started hormones, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm finally moving toward what I've been wanting for so long. And there's that like massive release of dopamine, and it's like, oh, this is a sign I'm on the right track. Has your gender identity influenced your love life? Yeah, actually. Because I tell people straight up, this is what I am. If you're not cool with it, we ain't gonna work. And also, there was a big fear of me never being able to find someone that actually likes me for who I am, or someone that I actually love, because of me being weird. Now, I use saying me being weird for me. I'm not saying all transgender and non-binary people are weird. This is just a personal descriptor I like to use for me because it's a shortcut. Also, I kind of like being weird. That's like a thing for me. I like being odd. But yeah, the first partner I had was very much you're queer, non-binary, awesome. I'm cool with that. And I kind of got the feeling that she kind of like liked it because it was unique and cool, and not really fetishizing it, but like liking the idea of how unique it was, and that she was dating someone like that, and I felt more like a trophy wife of a sort. And I'm like, that's not quite what I'm looking for. I didn't really feel discriminated against or like fetishized, but it was more like, this isn't quite right, you know? My current partner is someone who I definitely absolutely feel like sees me for who I am, which I didn't think would ever happen, and I didn't think it would actually happen this fast. I got lucky very fast, and so I'm just going to tell you now, if you're concerned about your dating life when you're transitioning or when you're coming out, you will eventually find someone. Like, there is someone for you. It's probably going to be a lot harder for other people, because I swear I got so lucky. This is the second person I've ever dated. I meant to go on like a bender of just sleeping with a bunch of people and like really exploring my sexuality, and that kind of stopped about the first person I met because I ended up catching feelings for her. So, oops, do you go through surgeries to get rid of your dysphoria? Yeah, I got rid of my Adam's apple. That's really the only surgery I've had that's a significant one. I also had a vasectomy, which one is for personal, like moral reasons. The other one is also because of my gender identity and how I don't like the idea of, oops, you're pregnant now. Oh, that's because of me. Oh God, that's because of me. I can do that. That's kind of like that was like a whole deal for me. That was half and half. So that was really the only two ones that I had. I don't really think I want any more surgery. I was thinking of getting facial feminization surgery for a while now, but over the course of almost 3 years now of hormone replacement therapy, my facial structure has changed, and the fat in my face distribution has changed to where I'm pretty okay with how I look. I'm not super fond of my jawline some days, and other days I'm like, dang, I have a good jawline. It goes back and forth, and that's something I'm probably never going to get rid of. I'm afraid if I get facial feminization surgery, I'm going to look in the mirror and go, I kind of wish I looked more masculine today, and that's just part of the gender fluidity. It goes back and forth every day. So it's like, I'm probably not going to win that fight. How do you know you're trans and not just feeling unsatisfied with your body? For me, it was because I question that also. I worked out all the time, constantly, every day, as much as I can to be as fit as I possibly could. I wanted to explore every possible alternative to what I knew was the truth before coming out. I experimented with my clothes and my expression, just like that simple sort of stuff, working out, trying to get a better body, a healthier body, eating better. That was all the stuff I tried exploring before I kind of went, okay, this isn't really working. I still feel gross. And that's when I started like trying out corsets and in my own time, like when the doors closed, never in public, would try like women's clothes, and I'm like, yeah, this is more on the right track. Crud. Oh, fine. Do you have any advice for people who think they might be trans or just confused about what defines being trans? Being transgender and non-binary is a very, very low bar. Like, it's incredibly low. People think that it's like, oh, I need to just want to be the opposite gender. Not necessarily. You can just not be comfortable with the gender that you are, or the sex that you're born with. And it doesn't need to be like, you don't need to have like a solid goal. You just need to feel like, I don't really feel like this is me. Or I feel like this is partly me, in my situation. I feel like this is partly me, but not all the way. And there's a lot of aspects that I want to explore that I can't because I feel like I'm born the way I am. I'd say the best thing to do is do research on your own, which no doubt people have already done, but also and this is the hardest part, finding a therapist or some other person that you can talk to, like search for a community that you can like bounce these ideas off of and your feelings toward so that you don't feel like you're alone. That's probably the best thing you can really do. While growing up and coming to understand who you are, how did you change in those years? As a gay man, when I figured out who I was, I became a lot more okay with my mannerisms, and looking back at how I acted, I can say, yeah, it's obvious. Is there any moments you can think of when you really jump out and say, yeah, it's kind of obvious? For me, I was never really in denial about who I was. I was more in denial of, I was more like fearing actually committing to what I knew I was because of all the horror stories I heard about being hate crimed. Like, you know the Ramona Flowers run of the Sprite in the Scott Pilgrim video game? I ran like that sometimes, and it felt fun a lot. I really liked how fun it felt. There was a big thing when like I started getting like into My Little Pony, and like a bunch of guys were getting into My Little Pony, but also I got into Tinkerbell, and also Ever After High was so good. And I started realizing I don't really have anyone to really talk about these sort of things with. And it was more just like small little clues of things I already knew. So no, I was already very self-aware of it. I had the fortune of finding people to talk to about this and feeling very comfortable with talking to people about this. I think that's really what made it to where like I was very self-aware because I could bounce this off of other people. People who don't have someone to talk to about that, I think is really like when they get stuck in the denial and uncertainty part. How do you start to tell people who have known you differently all your life? How did they react, and how long did it take for them to start using the different pronouns and names consistently? And do they still accidentally slip back into old habits? I first told my closest friends, people who I felt would accept me immediately, and they did. They were like, oh, I mean, like I have one friend that's like doesn't really like express themselves as much as my other friends. So he's like, oh yeah, okay. And kind of looked down and was like, I need to process this. And that's kind of it. He never really like lashed out or said anything, and he just didn't really change how he treated me whatsoever. That's fine. My other friend was like, oh, awesome. What do you plan to, like, started bombarding me with questions, very, affirming questions of like, do you plan to do this? Do you plan to change this? What should I call you? What? And it was very like on board with like, oh, I need to be a good friend right now. And I'm like, that's nice. That's kind of what I'm looking for. They still have troubles with calling me by my new name. I don't really like point it out. I hate pointing it out and being like, hey, can you like remember that that's not what I go by anymore? Haha. I more just try to do I have a problem with passive aggression. I have the problem of doing the passive aggressive one of like telling other people like, oh no, my name is this, and looking at them and introducing myself. And making it very obvious of, you got it wrong, by the way. Because that's how I grew up. That's how my parents taught me to deal with things. Because my parents my parents were almost divorced a few times. And the passive aggressive thing became a problem in my current relationship, which we are currently on the other side of fixing. Our communication has gotten so much better now. When it comes to pronouns, how I use pronouns is very different because I go by all pronouns, and I usually go by all pronouns because not every day I'm going to express myself as one gender or another, or the middle, or something else. So I use my gender as a gauge of how people are currently viewing me. So when people say he, I'm like, eh. But okay, if that's how I look to you, then I'll make a mental note of that for today. People say she, I'm like, hey, okay, I'll make a mental note of that for today. And if they use they, I'm like, you're trying. People don't just say they nowadays. You looked at me and went, I'm going to try for you. I'm like, I appreciate you. I see you. What's your opinion on mo-guy terminology? I think it's helpful for me. Someone like gray gender helped me realize I'm under the non-binary umbrella, but it might be harmful to others who would find it more comfort to use the simpler LGBT plus terms. I love labeling myself because it helps me understand me. Yeah, honestly, I feel like when it comes to the LGBT, there's like layers of how complicated it can be for some people. I'm trying not to make my chair squeak because I'm answering so many questions. I don't want to stand for this, but also this chair is not the best. I think people who are confused and are just entering, you go with the simple stuff. Don't complicate it for yourself, and also don't complicate it for new people. Make it easy for them. And if they want to delve more into the more classifications of these sorts of things, they can do that on their own time, or they come to you asking for like, I feel like that's not quite correct. Can you help me with more? Then you go with the deeper levels of the gay agenda, of the alphabet mafia. You get them more knowledge of the depths. You go from 101 to 502 or something of the classes of being queer. There's layers. These terms are made to help individuals. These terms are not made to be put on other people. If you like it and it helps you figure out your own brain, then use it. If not, don't worry about it. Is there something you think people who date or are friends with trans/MB people should know or pay attention to that's often overlooked? I think the biggest thing is just to be knowledgeable, hopefully, on the different aspects, and be comfortable with asking them questions. A lot of people are so like pussyfoot around the whole thing, and they're like, I don't want to offend you. It's like, if you're afraid of offending them, like, listen, can I ask you questions? I'm ignorant. I may offend you, and I'm sorry in advance, but I need to educate myself, and I want to know you better. That's what you say. Set it all on the table. If they say yes, ask away. If they say no, don't. People just need to be more comfortable with asking questions. It infuriates. It really annoys me when people are like, listen, I don't know if this is going to offend you, so is it okay if I ask you this question? Or, I'm like, just ask. Oh my God, just ask. I'm more of a kind of person that's more thick-skinned, so I can handle myself. That's not really going to be the case with a lot of people who are, very concerned about their own gender identity and don't really understand themselves well. So in my experience, just ask. God, just ask. What's it like in the scenario where you need to come out to strangers? I don't. I work from home. I don't have a work space that I gotta go to. If they ask, I'll tell them. But I'm not going to supply that information freely. You get what you get. I don't owe you shit. Most common misconceptions you find about being trans/non-binary. The biggest thing is that people think it's like just one clear, obvious thing, and they do look at the definition and think, oh yeah, that's it. Not really knowing how vague the definition actually is. Like I mentioned earlier, transgender, the bar for being transgender is super low. You can not change anything about yourself, and if you still go, I'm not really too crazy about the sex I was born as, you're transgender. If it's like a minuscule amount, you're transgender. That's how it is. Like, you don't actually need to do anything in order to be transgender. It's just something you feel. You don't need to come out to anyone about it. You don't need to like make it a big part of your personality, because it feels a little, I will admit, it would be a little weird if it's like you're saying openly like, no, I'm transgender. I don't do anything about it. Like, okay, really? That'd be weird, but also like that is technically valid. And that's like the weird thing about being transgender and non-binary. And also, transgender and non-binary are both umbrella terms that can be like switched up and down. Like, this is how I think of being non-binary. Here's a little infographic for you guys. And like, being transgender is under being binary, and being non-binary, it can also be under being transgender. Like, it's interchangeable, and this may not be entirely correct, but this is just how I frame it in my mind. So if this visual helps you understand it, great. If you look at it and go, that's wrong, probably, but that's how I think of it. It could be wrong, but this is how it helps me. What gender do you pick in games with a character creator? Usually female, just because girls are pretty. It has the double bonus of, one, I like looking feminine a lot of the time, and two, I'm attracted to feminine looking people. And I say feminine looking people because I'm fine with like what you got going on down there. Like, if you're feminine, you got a chance with me. There's some like just like well-dressed looking guys, like well-groomed guys, and I'm also like, well, you get me a little tipsy and you got a chance too. I'm AFAB, assigned female at birth, but lately I've been indulging that I am potentially non-binary. However, I am also Muslim, and from a rigid conservative household where gender roles is everything. I know it's a loaded question, but I'm wondering what it's like to live your authentic self without fear of potential backlash. This is a hard one, and I usually stick with the answer of you choose safety first over your expression and actually coming out of the closet. Because if you're not in an environment where it's safe, don't. I know it sucks, and it sucks hard. It's not fun, and I know you hate yourself, and you probably like want to come out and feel comfortable, and there is the fear of possible suicide with people who can't come out. And that is an unfortunate reality, but you need to be in an environment where you feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, don't come out. Like, it's more of a case of don't be dumb. And I'm sorry you're in this situation, and I hate how people are in this situation. I would recommend getting older, moving out, getting into a place where you are independent and on your own, and then exploring all this. Like, you don't need to just give up. You can do it later. You can just do it later in life. That was my initial plan, until I got to a point where I was going to mutilate myself in pursuit of what I was doing. And then I went, oh, that's probably not good. I need to come out now. If I was in your situation, I would have straight up mutilated myself. Dang. I only came out because I felt like my relationship with my family was getting better. Yeah. There's not a good way to answer this. Do you think there are any non-binary anime characters you feel do justice to the experience? Also, what hair care products do you use? I think the only one I really like is Rain from Owl House, especially because it's like they don't really like make a point of it or like make it part of their like character. And I mean that in like you remember that one character, I forget their name, from She-Ra, where like they can transform and they're a shapeshifter. Very on the nose of I don't have a gender, ha, but it's not really like a non-binary character. Like the voice actor, non-binary, that's smart, that's good, but that character isn't really technically non-binary in the sense of choosing to be non-binary and exploring that and, you know, working toward it. It's just they get the luxury of not being stuck in the body that they are, and that's not quite the same. Rain is very much someone who is born as a specific sex, most likely growing up that way, choosing to break away from the expectations that it comes with, and everyone else in the story is just like, yeah, that's just them. Like, they don't like, I like stories that just don't make a point of it. They don't point a finger at it. They're just like, that's just who they are. You just go with it because it should be normal, and they're treating it like it's normal. Also, the biggest thing for my hair is 1, finasteride, which is part of my hormone medication. That helps a lot. And 2, you don't wash your hair every day. A lot of people do that. Don't wash your hair every day. Wash it maybe like twice a week, maybe once a week. Do you also get comments like, so when will you fully transition? As in, when will you go to the other side of the binary? I feel like I personally get it a lot, but I don't hear other non-binary people talk about it. I don't think I do. And that's largely because I think I've done a good job at cultivating a good community on YouTube. So I don't really see a lot of bigotry in my comments. And if I do, usually there's like 5 or 6 people who will reply to that person saying, hey, you're being wrong. Like, I don't feel the need to stand up for myself all the time. It's exhausting trying to fight internet comments all the time. And so I just don't. Although being trans usually comes with a lot of dysphoria, do you have any traits that make you feel the opposite? Like things that make you feel especially good about it? You mean like affirming my gender? I think is what you're describing. I think the opposite would be gender euphoria instead of dysphoria. For me, it's, you know, piercings. That helped a lot. I feel like that really helped a whole bunch. Just general makeup, even if it's just like, mostly just foundation or concealer, and that's it. That helps. No, a full face of makeup, like, is fine, but there's a point where I'm like, it's not really adding anything more to what I already have. So I have a very simple makeup setup for myself. And just clothes, like being open with trying out different clothes and how I feel in them. And a big thing about it is always trying to like make sure I'm healthy, like my body's fit and the way I want to look. So like if I start feeling gross or I start feeling like there's fat going into different areas and growing in different places, like right now my tummy feels gross because that's progesterone is really like pushing a lot of fat to my tummy, and I'm like, I want it out of my hips, you jerk. So I go the extra mile of making sure I'm doing a lot of workouts for growing my hips and trying to get that hourglass shape, but also trying to like get that flat washboard stomach that I used to have that I like a lot. It's kind of a mix. I want to be a feminine guy and a masculine girl. It's what I want to be. When did you first start dating? Also, do you have any advice for someone who hasn't dated before? I'm 29, never been on a date or had any kind of romantic relationship. And while I'm open to dating, I have also spent the past 15 years trying to dodge concerned relatives. For me, dating was really hard. I started dating around 22, 23. My problem was that, I was horrified at dating because of all the fears I had about who I was and, you know, the awkward conversation of, if we start dating and I start developing feelings for them, I'm going to eventually have to come out and they're probably not going to accept me and I'm going to have my heart crushed, and I'm just like, I'd rather just avoid the pain entirely. I was so scared of dating, I had a panic attack when someone asked me out. It was bad. For me, I didn't start until I started transitioning and I started getting to a point where I felt comfortable with myself. Then I started. Not expecting anything big, but I got to a point where I felt like I could finally try. And obviously it was like, I put it all out there, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm on hormones. This is how long I've been on hormones. This is who I am. I don't leave the uncomfortable conversation as a possibility. I get that out of the way at the beginning. I don't want to deal with that. If you experience it, how do you deal with feelings of internalized transphobia about your own transition? I struggle with the thoughts of not being trans enough, and what if I should detransition, or maybe I would be happier being cis, even though I'm 100%, 120% sure of my own identity. Well, before it comes to the detransition part, I already know how awful and miserable I was prior to where I am now, so that's never a concern for me. I don't have any concern about thinking about detransitioning. Not being transgender enough, I think the big thing is like watching videos of people who are queer, non-binary, all like in that scope of your identity, also finding videos and like online media, like books or comics, feeling like having the feeling of it being normal. That's really the goal. And that's, that's a big thing of why representation matters in media, because it does, because the people who think representation doesn't matter are privileged jerks who are only thinking of themselves. Will there be a time where you can have people that actually love you unconditionally instead of taking their love away because of a change? For me, yes. That hasn't really entirely happened with my parents. My parents' situation is more of just, so long as we're not fighting, we're good. And so it's a lot of me just knuckling under and dealing with them being dicks sometimes. I found people who love me for who I am. It's really just, if you're in an environment where you don't feel that way, you find a new community. Will there ever be a day where it's possible to lay down and just feel like you're truly yourself and you're just not living in another person's body? For me, yeah, that happened. You'll get there. Takes time, takes work, but you'll get there. So did you feel comfortable being called your gender at birth? And if not, do you know? Did I feel comfortable? When I was in the closet, yeah, because it felt safe. And that's why. This one is a question I haven't been able to ask to get a satisfying answer to those who I do ask. Why can't you just be a special boy? I've been asked this, which ironically those same people freak out if I wear anything slightly gender non-conforming. For me, special boy, that's kind of always been femboy for me. Like, a lot of people took femboy as like an insult and like a bad word, and now it's becoming so much more normalized because, like, why would it be a bad word? Special boy, sure. Femboy is just like, just feels like it's the same thing to me. So I agree, but it's kind of up in the air with how you feel about the term. Does your dysphoria define your transness? Would you still be trans if you had never had any dysphoria? I have heard people who don't have dysphoria, and again, the bar for being transgender, as I've said multiple times, is very low. You don't necessarily have to have dysphoria in order to be transgender. You just need to be like, dang, I could really be something else. I mean, this isn't bad, but I could really be something else. Technically, that's transgender. Do you correct people when they misgender you at places like work or school, or do you just let them? I just let them, because the way I use how people gender me is really just what I figure out what I need to be doing in the bathroom. Like, I wait for someone to gender me, and if they say she, I go into the girl's bathroom. If they say he, I go into the guy's bathroom that day. That's how I use it. That's the point. That's what I do. Did you ever have moments where you felt that because you are trans non-binary that dating felt impossible? Oh God, yes. So bad. But the only way to get over that is to start loving yourself and start being comfortable with yourself. That's how. How do you feel about cis artists including non-cis characters in their works? As a writer, I'd really love to make my casts more diverse, but often feel it could consider it offensive to include narratives I probably won't ever experience myself. For that, I usually say women authors write men just fine. Men write women just fine sometimes. So cis people can write about non-cis people and vice versa. It's just a matter of being exposed to that community, talking to them, and doing your research. Like, the reason why a lot of guys don't write women well is because they don't actually talk to them or get to understand them. It's about how much effort you put into the research. People are also a subject of research that you need to dedicate time to. Do you have any tips on writing trans characters for both stories where their gender identity is focused on a lot? When it's where their gender is focused on a lot, and you're writing a story about it, that's more of a situation where I think a person who is transgender should be writing that story. But it all comes down to if you're not transgender or you are cis doing a story about being transgender, it's a matter of talking to them. Getting an understanding. You don't know what you don't know. as the biggest thing. You need to figure out what you don't know. When you started using pronouns different from the ones you were assigned at birth, were you instantly comfortable with the new ones, or was it a gradual thing? I was not comfortable with it at first. It was very much a gradual thing. It was more of a case of realizing, oh God, I'm doing this. Oh God, I'm coming out. Oh God, I'm actually trying. Oh geez. So it's like eventually now I'm comfortable with it. Now I prefer they, them more than anything else. At the beginning, no, I was not comfy with it. Can you go into a little detail about the process of finding a gender-specific therapist? I know you mentioned going to a therapy and then telling you, oh yes, that's non-binary in a video. Now would be a good time to ask about that. So for me, I can't really advocate on how to properly do it because for my situation, there's a specific hospital in Colorado where it's just they have a transgender health program. So you go in, talk to a couple therapists, like 2 of them are right there. They both specialize in this. They listen to you. Like I was in the hospital talking to therapists and they went, yep, you got it. That's dysphoria. Okay, let's get an endocrinologist in here. And then I got talked to an endocrinologist and he assigned me hormone pills. Like it's very fast here, and I cannot guarantee you're going to go through the same situation. Again, I'm very lucky with how it turned out. Here, they're really trying to be better about it and trying to take it more seriously. Also, I think there's certain laws that dictate that, like, you can't say no to certain things, and I don't know how that works, so it's The situation is that finding a therapist, if you're going to go through the traditional route of finding a therapist, try to find one that's specializes in gender identity, which I don't know how many there are. There probably isn't a lot. And also be prepared because finding a therapist sucks. It sucks regardless of like what you're trying to do. Finding a therapist in any capacity sucks. Like the entire world of therapy and therapists need to be revamped entirely. Do you ever get phantom limb feelings of genitals, breasts, etc., of what you might imagine in your mind's eye of what your body is supposed to look like and get really depressed when it isn't there or vice versa? I don't really get like phantom limb or like the feeling of it should being there, but I do know oftentimes I'll have a mind's eye picture of what I should be, and I get like really worked up when I get that feeling of like, that's like, I want that so bad, and it's just, I don't have it. I've trained my brain to like double down on pushing myself and motivating myself towards fighting for it. So if that's a case of, I don't have it and I want it really bad, I'll start like doing like with like the hourglass body that I want to have and like more hips on the side and more of a badonkadonk. I got a booty. I don't got a badonkadonk. I could probably have a badonk, but not a badonk-a-donk. I just double down on like working out and trying different things and experimenting with a bunch of stuff and like really pursuing it. So for me, I think I have a more of a healthy coping mechanism for it. I don't just sit there and be sad. I can't do that. That's miserable and I hate it, and that's not what people should be doing. Do whatever you like, but stop trying to groom children. You are a sheep to propaganda, dude. We're not trying to. Stop watching Fox News. Why are you goth? Also, what's trans and non-binary? I wouldn't say I'm goth. I would say I'm more alternative, just because I feel like that's just a general term. Goth is like a very specific subcategory, and there's subcategories of that subcategory. And I'm like that because I think it's cool. I've always liked alternative stuff. I always grew up with like rock and punk and new metal and thrash, some thrash metal. A lot of divorced dad rock growing up. It was just like how I liked. That's just what I liked. I don't know how to answer that question. You are because you like it and you identify with it. Why is anybody goth? Do you think being male or female is something you're born as? If not, why? What makes you trans and not just more masculine or feminine? So this is a lot of the big conversation that a lot of like you hear a bunch of like dude bro podcasters talking about, and I like the truth of it is often taken away from what their actual motive is. So what they're describing is, or this person is describing, is if you don't subscribe to the idea of there being a difference between sex and gender, then there isn't a conversation that we're going to have. Like, I fully acknowledge I was born male. I have male primary and secondary traits that I was born as, like the primary trait being the thing between my legs. The secondary traits being broader shoulders. I don't have boobs. My chest and my waist is more square and there's not a lot of curvature. Like those are all the secondary traits, and that's just part of sexual dimorphism. You know, like how like lions and lionesses, the lion will have a mane, the lioness is the actual one that goes out and does everything because they're actually the competent one. Like you see sexual dimorphism throughout all of nature, and it's not like it's just not true with, humans. Like, sexual dimorphism is true. It's present. We are all very aware of it. No one's denying sexual dimorphism. Male and female is a truth that exists. The differentiating part of it is that gender and how we display ourselves, like the clothes that we wear, which clothes are not just like a natural thing that happens in nature, or our makeup, or our hair, our hairstyles, all these different sorts of things are all comprised of the society and the complexities that we've made as humanity has gotten more complicated. And thus gender and all that is just like bottled up into what we call gender and like how you express yourself. I think it's better to just say express yourself, because people don't understand the difference between gender and sex. Like, there's sex, which is male and female in your chromosomes, and then there's gender, which is how you express yourself. And that is a subjective, and that is a product of the complexities of our society. So I do believe male and female is a truth, because, yeah, duh, what makes you trans and not just more masculine and feminine is I am trans because I was born masculine, and I don't like being all that masculine, and I want to work towards being more feminine. That's the differentiating part. It's not just, it's not tied to your sex. Your gender is not tied to your sex. And if you don't subscribe to that idea, then we're not going to find a common ground whatsoever. That's like the entire foundation of this entire video. And if you don't agree with it, then I appreciate you watching this video, but we just have fundamentally different beliefs. Do you think gender is just a social concept? Yeah, I think I just described how that works in the previous question. Oops. If I don't know you're trans/non-binary, does it count as racist if I call you he, him? No. If you don't know, and this is like the big thing that a lot of people get concerned about, and that's why they pussyfoot around just asking. If everyone has to make an assumption about someone. It's just how we have to make shortcuts to live our daily lives and get through and navigate it. But if you're having a one-to-one with someone, and like you go up to someone and say he, him, and it's like, that's fine, okay. But when they come back and say, oh, by the way, I don't go by he, him, I go by something or other, and you continue to use he, him, then you're being a dick. It's like, if you stumble at the beginning, no one's gonna fault you for it. But if there's big signs telling you go this way and you ignore them, then that's on you. Do you actually care if people use the correct pronouns, or have you just gotten used to people getting it wrong? I do care. I do. I just don't care for making a big deal out of it. Like, I prefer my family to use my new name more than using my pronouns. Like, my pronouns are secondary to my new name. Pronouns are more just, like, yeah, it sucks, but like I said, it's hard to change. Like, a new name, that's not that hard to change. Like, come on. Is there any regrets of being non-binary? The only regret I have is getting rid of the safety of being cis, and that's it. Everything else is really nice now that I don't need to deal with my own brain being dumb and, again, possibly mutilating myself. I explained that in my previous video of not being binary. So, like, yeah, I think it's a decent trade. I have a lot more fun now. I'll tell you that. I have a lot more fun now. What's it like being trans where you live? Pretty good. I live in Colorado. It's pretty good. I haven't been, yelled at or freaked out over or anything like that. It's been very tame. So I'm sorry for everyone who lives in very conservative states. Colorado's great, and there's a reason why a lot of people are moving to Colorado. It's boring here. It's really boring here. Don't get me wrong. Feels very safe here. It's slowly getting a little less safe as time goes on, but still a lot better than a lot of other places. I don't want to sound rude, but why does the LGBT plus community keep adding letters even after the plus was added? It makes me more confused, if anything. I support them, but how is the plus not inclusive enough without bloating the acronym? I mean, what? Because this is like I'm sorry, but like the ignorance of this question and like how obvious it is so weird to me. We're learning a lot and deconstructing a lot of things, and eventually someone comes up with something and the community agrees, you know what, I think that's a thing. We'll make a word for it, we'll categorize it, we'll make a definition for it. But like the plus is just like, we keep adding more, We can't just have the acronym be a million miles long, so we just have the plus there because we know we're going to add more. It was future-proofing it. Like, I don't understand what your problem is, dude. How does someone go about courting an NB/trans person? Will NB/trans people even date a cis-gay lesbian? The way you do it is by treating them like a normal person, and you just do it like you just court them like you normally do any other person. And you just, gotta be open to having the conversation of, hey, you want to talk about you and anything I should know about? And you just gotta give them an opportunity to tell them, hey, don't do this, or please do this, and that's it. That's it. You just don't treat them differently. You treat them differently, you're shooting yourself in the foot. That's what you're doing. Do you think it's common for cis people to question their gender identity? Yeah, I don't think they question it for as long as people who aren't cis do. I think everyone has a moment where they question it, but as I mentioned earlier, if you're questioning it for more than a week or a month, and it keeps going, any long extended period of time, it's probably a good sign you are what you think you may be. Do you wish you were born the other sex? As a non-binary person, sorry, this is weird, but I feel like some NBs would. Sometimes I do, just because there's certain secondary traits that I'd prefer to have. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I don't need to deal with having a period. And I know that's probably really mean to say and really rude to some people, but I think the majority of people who were assigned female at birth is nodding their head going, yeah, having a period sucks. And I'm glad I don't, I think I'm good. The more I think about it, I can get surgery for these if I really want to commit the money. I can work out a lot in order to get the hips. Like, there's ways to get what I want. I'd prefer not having to spend the money, but there's ways. And even then, if I was born female, there's no guarantee I'd get exactly what I want. There's no guarantee I'd have a G cup and massive big titty anime girl vibes. So, like, that's not even guaranteeing the thing that I want. There's some people who were assigned female at birth who are skinnier than me. So no, I think I'm fine. I try not to imagine the what ifs, and I more try to take what I have and move forward, because ruminating on the what ifs is just running in a circle, and it will drive you crazy. What's your religion? I don't have one. I know it's probably really weird. Some of you probably noticed that I'm wearing a Baphomet shirt, mostly because I'm goth, according to that one person's comment. But no, I don't have one. And when I say I don't have a religion, people usually hear that and say, I don't believe in God. And I don't say that because typically when people say like they're an atheist, they're usually saying it from like looking down on others. Like, there's a sense of superiority with a lot of atheists. And I hated that. And I'm like, you guys are just making up a new reason to be a jerk. And that's the exact thing that other religions are doing. I thought you were trying to break away from other religions being a jerk. You're just creating a non-religion that's an excuse to be a jerk. So when I tell people that I don't have a religion and that I don't believe in God, the big caveat is, if God does exist, that's cool. I just don't think there's evidence for it. But if I die and I see, everything was true, well, that explains a lot of things. I'm going to have a lot of questions for God, but then again, who doesn't? So I say, no, I don't have one, but please remove the smug sense of superiority that people typically have. I don't care. I don't care if God does or doesn't exist. I don't care if someone else believes that he does or doesn't exist. I just want people to stop being jerks. Have any of your ex-partners broken up with you because of the fact that you were trans and non-binary? No, I've had the opposite. I've had them dating me because I was specifically non-binary. And it got weird. What you will say to people that does not want to go to a professional to confirm if they really have gender dysphoria. So what would I say to people that don't want to go to a professional to confirm if they have gender dysphoria? That's fine. You don't have to. It's a sucky process. You're not going to start transitioning. You need to go through the process to get what you need. Doing at-home remedies of trying to find these, foreign Vietnamese roots that will help feminize you, or doing other at-home remedies or buying sketchy things online. They're not gonna work. They're gonna do maybe a little bit. They're not gonna do what you want. And you're gonna do the same thing I did, where you're gonna hit a roadblock where you just get to a point where nothing's working and it drives you crazy and there's not really any other way to fix it other than going through the process and dealing with how sucky it is. If I think you're cute, but I identify as straight, am I invalidating your identity? I don't think so. No, I think that's fine. Seeing as I'm kind of supposed to be, for me specifically, this is not for anyone else. I'm speaking purely on my own. This is going to be a different answer for every person you ask. For me specifically, I try to be attractive for everyone. I don't try to be attractive for girls. I don't try to be attractive for guys. I just try to be attractive. So if you find me attractive and you're straight, you're probably seeing all like actually, I don't know what gender you are. You're probably seeing all of the traits of the gender that you are attracted to in me because I try to make sure both are present. That's fine. You're good. Don't worry about it. Do you accept dude and baby girl as gender-neutral words? Of course they are. How dare you assume otherwise? Dude, baby girl, bitch is another gender-neutral term that I use a lot. Guys, when referring to a group, is also gender-neutral. I like dude a lot. I think dudette is dumb because I always thought dude as gender-neutral. So like, yeah. How do you know you're non-binary and not just apathetic to your own biogender? Again, here is the infographic. If you are apathetic to your own gender, that is a subcategory of being non-binary. You are correct. You literally can't be incorrect. You're not non-binary. I'm just agender. Yeah, that is correct. I'm not agender. I'm just non-binary. That is correct. Sorry, buddy. You're just like a subcategory of a subcategory. Did you ever change how you dressed because you felt it wasn't non-binary enough? Yes, but that largely depends on the day. I'm very gender fluid. It will heavily depend on the day and like the event and how I'm feeling that day. Sometimes I just get into a vibe, a mode, and I'm just like, I want to dress street and punk and cool. And other times I'm like, nah, I want to dress like nothing and I don't want to go out and be perceived. And other days I'm like, I'm cute. Does someone use the opposite gender public bathroom? Does someone use the opposite gender? Yes. You use the one you're comfortable with. I'm not sure what you're asking. How long have you been trans and non-binary? About 3 years. I started in 2020. It's very easy for me to keep track. I started right before COVID hit. It's, yeah. How would you solve the trans people in sports kerfuffle? Oh, gee, I don't know. I'm not sure that has a solid, nice, easy answer. The big problem that people are coming up with is that, like, there's the option of have a tertiary subcategory of just like, that's where the transgenders play. And I'm like, that's not gonna work because you'll have the exact same problems of like, there's trans men that have more testosterone in their body than the trans women, and then you'll have them winning most of it. And then, you know, other people, or like you'll have people like me that are like the testosterone blockers aren't fully reducing my testosterone levels to feminine levels. Like I'm at like half male level testosterone. So you have the awkward in-between people like me, and it's just like, who knows who's gonna win? You have the option of, I don't think people are really talking about the option of if you are transgender and you have like a doctor's note, you're going through an endocrinologist, you're in the transgender health program, and you want to be part of the sport that of which you identify as. And it's not fair, but it's more fair to, I would say it's more fair to the people who are cis in that field. You would just show your blood work and say, I am at the hormone levels of the gender that I want to play sports as. I have been at these levels for over a year now, and I think that's as fair as we're gonna get. I don't know. Do you guys mind if we accidentally misgender you? Not really. I mean, if it's accidental, I don't care. If it's intentional, I do care. Did you ever feel that you will never be loved because you're not the norm or what society thinks you should be? I did. Now I don't, because I found some people that do. You just gotta try and work for it. Is it possible to get to a point where you look in a mirror and don't hate what you see? At this point of my life, I avoid seeing myself at all times if possible. There is a point for me. It's more of a. It slowly goes. It's like 9 times out of 10 I like what I see. Before it was 0 times out of 10 or maybe 1 time out of 10. And then it slowly got to like 1 time out of 10, 3 times out of 10, 5 times, 7 times, 9 times. And it's never going to be 10 out of 10 all the time. At least not for me, I think. I don't think that's going to happen for me because of me being gender fluid and my brain just going back and forth every day. But for some people, yeah, it'll happen. It takes time. Time is the biggest thing. The sooner you start, the sooner you're going to get to where you want to be. But also, don't start until you're ready. How do you differentiate I want to be you versus I want you? Oh, that's hard. It's really hard. Sometimes it's both. That's what makes it difficult. For me, it's just, I can always tell when it's I want you. I can always tell when it's that. I'm a horny fuck. When it's I want to be you, that's when it gets difficult. And that's just like, that's when it's, you try it out and you try out their style and you try out their expression and be like, sometimes it'll be a phase and you try it out for like a week and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then after that week, it's like, I don't really care for it anymore. And it's like, sometimes it's just you want to give something that looks cool a shot. You don't need to like commit to it for the rest of your life. Have you looked at a stranger and felt gender envy? Yeah, of course I have. Have you seen Muscle Mommies? Have you seen Andy Black? Have you seen Finster? Have you seen basically any vampire, honestly? How did you come out to your parents? I was very strategic with how I did. The way I did it was, hey, I started with my dad first because he'd be the toughest and I just want to get the toughest one out of the way. I said, hey dad, there's a lot of conversations about gender and transness and I've been reading a lot online and, I don't know if I am, but some of the things that I've been reading ring true for me. So I'm going to go talk to a therapist first. Gonna talk to a therapist and see if I can work it out. And if I'm not, that's cool. And if I am, then maybe I'll pursue it. Like, I try to add a lot of doubt of like, oh, I don't know. I probably could definitely be straight. I was definitely not straight or cis. But I worded it as if like, I don't know. It doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't hurt to talk to someone. It doesn't hurt to start the process. It doesn't hurt to start talking to a therapist to start hormones, it was more of just how I worded it. And he was like, okay, well, if you feel like I gotta go through this and go through the whole situation, then okay, he was pretty chill with it. Until he wasn't. Until he realized, you are going down the road. Oh, you are taking the hormone. Oh, and then it became a problem. Starting off, it was fine. Getting into it, it was ew. It was not nice. Where do you buy your clothes? One thing I do is I don't care what section I am in. Typically buy my clothes from, honestly, like Hot Topic. I think that's probably why the goth or alternative fashion is very appealing to me because it feels very unisex in itself. A lot of the time when I was just starting off, and I'm not proud of this, but I bought a lot of things from Shein because it was online and it was quick and fast and cheap. And it allowed me a very quick way to experiment with my gender expression with my clothes in a safe environment where no one had to see me go out and buy things in public. And so you should not be supporting Shein whatsoever. It's a terrible company. But if you can find a way to do it that's cheap and easy and fast, that's nice. And if you absolutely cannot give money to crappy companies like them and you're going to go out in public, you can at least, preface it by when you're checking out like, yeah, I'm getting some gifts for my girlfriend or boyfriend or brother or sister. And they'll be like, because that's normal. That's absolutely normal. Everybody does that. Like, you can just preface it by just lying. Just lie. People need to lie more. You don't owe people shit, and you also, that includes not owing people the truth. I haven't transitioned medically. I don't want to, in fact, but I am still female to male. Still a man who just dresses androgynously. My insecurities always feel strange when in context to other trans people. I feel like I should have dysphoria, but I don't. It feels like I am a fraud and that I don't fit in a circle. Like, I know I should not feel that way. I know I'm still a guy, and that should be enough, but I still feel guilty. Do you ever feel that? Like, people have a perception of what is you and what you struggle with, but can't really satisfy their quota. I think that's just a general problem in, like, a lot of communities. Because I think the biggest problem is that a lot of the queer community, in general, finds a lot of solace with each other by their struggle. And so we find a community through our pain, and once that pain goes away, the community goes away. That's not really your fault. And just, keep in mind that nobody would wish gender dysphoria or body dysmorphia on their worst enemies. It's awful, it's horrible, and it sucks. I think anybody who hears that you don't have dysphoria is very happy you don't. Do you feel obligated to tell people you're trans, like people who become close? No, not really. When it gets to like kind of weird, then I will. I understand like the purpose behind their words. Like if someone comes up to me and says, "You're the man," I'm like, I understand you're just trying to give me a compliment. I'm understanding you're just trying to say like I'm assertive and I really try my best to help the people I love, and like I understand like what is behind the shortcut words. So not really. No, I don't bother telling people until I get like till I'm in a, if I'm in a relationship with them, or if it's like with my roommate, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be living with you. You need to know something. Is it normal to feel like you're non-binary, but also like things stereotypically associated with your birth sex? Yes, because things are just things, and they don't actually intrinsically have any like connection to someone's sex because they're just things. Like plenty of girls play video games, but they're pushed out of the community in the space and like the where people talk about games because a lot of guys are chronically online jerkwads. But there's no way video games can be as big and popular as they are without girls also playing them. Like, things are just things. It's normal to just like things. Stop trying to associate a gender to a thing. It's just a thing. Does every trans person secretly want to be a werewolf, or is that just me? I want to be a vampire really bad, so you may be onto something. I don't want to sound mean. How do I know beforehand what everyone is? I just want to make gifts without messing it up. Just ask. You're not psychic. They're not psychic. They're not telepathic. Just ask. Communication is key in every relationship, not just your romantic ones. I've seen your pronouns on your TikTok, but if someone were to like say, "Hey girl, would that be fine?" or "Yes, that'd be fine." Yeah. Like I like the idea of being one of the boys as well as being one of the girls. It really just matters about like where I want to feel accepted. And certain terminologies are just part of those communities, and it's not a big deal. What are your pronouns? I go by all pronouns. I think I mentioned previously in this video why I go by all pronouns. If you want to be very, very correct, they, them is my preferred. But if you accidentally type he or she, I don't care. You know, like I have a preferred one, but also I'm not offended if you use other ones. Why did you want to shave off your Adam's apple? Dysphoria. I hated it. It felt like I describe it to people as it feels like a tumor that needs to go away. Like it feels like a massive zit that you just want to pop. It feels like a weird vestigial tail that shouldn't be there. Something like that. That's how it felt to me. Did you ever cross-dress before coming out? Also, who are your mains in Smash Brothers? I kind of did it in my room. I'd never go out in public to do it. I definitely wasn't going to go out in public before it was more me like testing the waters. I wasn't going to go out in public until I felt like I was safe and having my hormones and not transitioning at all, having my hormones be at full male levels, and cross-dressing was going to get me weird looks, and I'd be way more at risk with that than I probably am now. Also, I don't play Smash Brothers. I don't like Smash Brothers. I usually played Meta Knight. Do you stay non-binary your whole life, or is it just a period of time figuring it out? I just don't fully understand it, but I mean, no hate by not understanding it. For some people, it's just a process of discovering who you are. For a lot of people, they go through the stage of, oh, I think I'm non-binary, and they try that out, and they, go through like the non-binary stuff. And eventually they realized, oh, no, wait, no, I'm just transgender. Oh, shoot, I just want to transition. For me, it was reversed. I thought I was transgender. Then I found out I was non-binary. I'm like more non-binary than I am transgender. I am both, but for some people, it's just figuring it out. You eventually settle on one, and people who flip-flop back and forth in between are probably one of the subcategories that they haven't been made aware of, and that's when you probably need to really educate them about this sort of thing. I'm asking this because I keep hearing that non-binary is an umbrella term you shouldn't be seen as a third gender. But genuinely, how many genders are there? People make this bad joke of there's like 1,056 trillion genders. There isn't. Like, gender is a spectrum. Like, it's like, think of an XY axis. Like, that's how you should think of gender. There's maybe a Z axis in there, but we're not gonna talk about that in this video. That's too complicated. Like, you gotta just think of it as like, well, one side is masculine, one side is feminine, and then the middle is neither or both. Actually, I think it'd be both. It'd probably be both, and then if you take yourself off of it, then you're neither, and you're trying to like be something else. Or maybe that's the y-axis. I don't know. There's other people who have explained it better than I have. I haven't really seen it before. I haven't really seen it often. But like, you can't think of it as just like small individual blocks that are gender. It is all one big mishmash, one liquid swoosh whoosh like art project. That's how it is. My pronouns are she, her, but I'm thinking of she, they. How did you know that you were they, them? Did you feel different? I would say, and you never really know, at least I didn't really know. I just asked people, hey, give it a shot. Please try it out for me. And if they're nice, and they will, or you can like try thinking of it in your head, like every time like you're having a self monologue, an inner monologue, and you realize you're using your old pronouns, try like, oh, wait, no. They want to do this, because sometimes I think of myself in the third person. And see how that feels. It's hard. It's weird, and it's a change, and change is weird. Change is difficult, and it's awkward. If you ever marry, what do you see yourself wearing? I have no idea. I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Did you ever reach a point where random men were hitting on you, or not really? No, but I don't know if it's because people see me and are like, you're not girl, or if it's I learned to just look stoic and mean and confident all the time to where I'm too intimidating to talk to. Because that's kind of the thing with like most everything. Because even then before, I don't think I was really that bad looking when I was fully male hormones before I started transitioning, and not a lot of people talked to me. I was angry a lot. I think it's more of just I got bitch face. How do you deal with people who do not accept that you're trans/non-binary? When it's the case of like my mom, I don't call her mom anymore. I say her name. You're not going to use my name. I'm not going to use mom. It's more of just the passive aggressive sort of deal that I do all the time. If it's online, I don't care. You're online. Are you still spending your time arguing with strangers online? That's pathetic in itself. It doesn't matter what the subject is. That's just pathetic. What do you think about people who think non-binary is just attention seeking? I think there's a certain amount of truth to it. You know, there's some people I know that say they're non-binary, and I'm like, are you though? Really? I didn't get a vibe from you. So usually I get a vibe, and technically you don't have to have a vibe. I get it. I'm being hypocritical in that sense. I think the majority of people who say they are people who are legitimate and confidently trying to say, I feel different, and they want to try to explore something else. And the very small amount of people are poisoning the well. Do you ever miss being insert previous gender here? No. I think I may also be NB, but gender feelings confuse me. Could you explain in simple terms what feeling like a male or feeling like a female means to you? I can't. I'm not sure anybody really can, honestly. Because if you're born male, that's all you've known, and you don't really know what it feels like to be the other sex or gender, and vice versa if you're born female and you identify as that. And for me, I was born male, and it just felt wrong. That's really all the advice I can give you. I was being perceived and presenting myself as male, and it just felt wrong. The way you can understand what it feels like to be the opposite sex is to talk to people who are the opposite sex. Get into a group of people of the opposite sex and ask them questions, and just be present in like their conversation. Since you're non-binary, what sexual attraction would you say you are? Like gay, lesbian, bi, pan, yada yada yada. I've been told I'm gynosexual because I like people who are feminine. I kind of possibly just bisexual. I don't know. If they're hot, I like them. I think just saying I'm attracted to feminine presenting people is the best way to word it. Did you ever mistake being non-binary with being gender fluid? Once again, here's the infographic. Would you alter your voice? This is my voice altered. When I started off, my voice is a lot deeper. If you go to some of my older videos, that of which I haven't hidden, you can see me pre-transition. We did it. It finally happened. 50,000 subscribers. I don't like doing this. Bow to your master. But thank you guys so much. My voice is different. My voice is not quite, feminine. My voice still seems kind of masculine. I get that. But voice training is hard, and also I'm not trying to be specifically female presenting, so my voice is kind of fine. Do I wish my voice was a little bit lighter? Yes. Do I need to practice a little bit more? Yes. But also, I'm pretty comfortable with my voice. Also, if you and your partner get married, would you want to have offspring? No. We had that conversation. Neither of us want one. I want to start certain actions to make myself look more masculine, but am super scared that I won't look the way I want or will look bad. Did you go through this? If so, how did you deal with it? For me, it was looking more feminine because I had the masculine part down to a T. The big thing is you're new at it, you're gonna look bad. Being bad is the first step to being good. you got to deal with first looking bad. We are now children who have to dress themselves for the first time. Accept the fact that you're not going to look good, and eventually you will eventually look good. You'll figure it out. You got to just start trying. You got to just start. Have you ever had dysphoria over your sexual parts? Have you ever wanted to get upstairs and downstairs surgery? Yes, I have. Usually during, what you use those parts for. Usually that. But it's like, it's hard to describe why. I don't know why. So yes, but I have no clue how to fix it, and there may not be a way to fix it. Do I want to get downstairs surgery? No. I think I'd be marginally unsatisfied with either. And what I got right now works pretty well with my current partner. I'm probably TMI right now. This is way too TMI. I'm very sorry. I shouldn't. You know what? No, hang on. Let me reword it. No, I have a thing that I can insert, and also I have a part that can be inserted in, so I'm good. I got both. Not quite exactly what is typically the nicer one, but I got something that functions. I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be the uncomfortable AMA. Why do a lot of non-binary people lean towards a gender if being non-binary is about not being a gender? Being non-binary is not necessarily about not being a gender. Being non-binary is about not adhering strongly to any specific gender. So the problem with your question is that you don't understand what non-binary really is. Are you a top or bottom or switch? What does that process, how does that process go for you? I am a switch. Gender and your sexuality are two separate things. How do you, as a trans individual, reconcile with the notion that gender isn't prescriptive, it is descriptive? So you can read the entire comment. It's really long. I think that what they're basically saying is that there isn't you can't just tell someone this is what you are. In some cases that helps people, but that's not going to be, you can't just tell them this is what they are and expect them to just go, oh, okay, gotcha. So it's not like a doctor. I know you have to talk to a therapist, and therapists will help, but ultimately it's up to you to figure out what that is. And so how do I reconcile with it? I just agree with you. I don't know what. That is just the correct interpretation of things. What do you think about bathrooms and changing rooms debate going on? We just more gender neutral bathrooms? Everyone wins with gender neutral bathrooms. I don't understand the problem. Gender neutral bathrooms are a great thing for not just trans people, but also for cis people. For trans people, obviously, I don't need to worry. For cis people, imagine you're a father with a daughter and you need to change their diaper. You don't want to bring them into the guy's bathroom because she's a daughter and that's awkward. And you don't want to go into the girl's one because you're a guy and that's awkward. Most parents will go into the bathroom that they associate with because that's the safest one because they are the adults and thus the biggest threat. But having a gender neutral bathroom, it's just you don't need to worry about it. It's a bathroom, it's a toilet, and that's all it is. For me, I'll sometimes go into the men's bathroom if I just need a pee and there's urinals there. Otherwise, it's just a toilet. If gender roles weren't so restrictive and heteronormative, would you still be non-binary? Is being non-binary a social choice, or are people just born non-binary like how you're born with your eye color? I think that is an incredibly great question. I think if I were to really ruminate on pretending society isn't the way it is and we live in this fantasy land where there isn't gender norms, I think being not so adherent to masculine or feminine presentations or how we usually think of things, I think there'd be a lot more people who would just be themselves and wouldn't feel the need to lean toward one or the other. I think there would be a lot more on the spectrum. You'd see people on every single little point of the spectrum between masculine and feminine, rather than just a big group over here, a big group over there, and people that are mostly in the middle, and then some stragglers in between, which is how we kind of have it now. I think it'd be a lot more equally dispersed, but I do think the way our society is heavily influences how people want to present themselves because it's more socially acceptable. But it is also true that people are non-binary because they are born that way and that is how they actually are. Do you think a lot of non-binary / trans people are unfairly aggressive and argumentative towards others? Honestly, kinda, yeah. I don't personally experience that because I don't bring that sort of vibe to these conversations. And if someone starts getting argumentative, I put a stop to it. Like, I have been around people who start really trying to argue this and get upset, and I'm like, you're making this worse. What are you doing? You're not helping the cause. So yeah, and I think it's largely just because, like, you want to defend the underdog, and it feels wrong when people are punching down on the underdog. And so that's that. So for people who have a strong moral sense of justice, that just sits so wrong with them. They get such a visceral reaction, and I understand that. But you need to fight it because you're making it worse. Do you think being trans can be somewhat misogynistic, like trans men who say that their parents should have known because they have short hair, or trans women who say that they're a girl because they love traditionally feminine things, like Dylan? How do you define the difference between body and gender dysphoria? So with the first question, do I find it misogynistic or misandristic, whatever the other one is? No. I mean, I think what I think is, one, things are just things. I'll repeat this again. Things are just things. You shouldn't assign a gender to them whatsoever. But we live in a society where things are heavily associated with certain genders. And so because of that, because people are growing up with these assumptions and these connections with these things, that they want to use this as more of an affirmation for themselves. This is more, when I hear that, I more hear them saying that they're more hearing them say to themselves that this is who I am. I should have always known. It's always been this way. Don't tell me otherwise. I shouldn't tell me otherwise. It's more for them. And the difference between body dysphoria and gender dysphoria is, at least for body dysmorphia, I literally look in the mirror and it changes. I've literally looked in the mirror one morning, got out of bed, go, oh, look at me. Whoa. Take a shower, come out of the shower. How did I become this disgusting troll? What happened? What? It's like your body changes and how you actually see it. It's awful. How would sexuality work if someone is non-binary? Like, if they're only into women, would they be lesbian or straight? Or into men, would they be gay or straight? That is a good question. That confuses a lot of people, and that was a question I came to term. I had to fight when I started transitioning. I just say queer. I just say the most generic term possible, because they're like, none of them are really correct. Saying gay is incorrect. Saying straight's incorrect. Saying lesbian is incorrect. I think saying straight is the most incorrect. There's more incorrect ones, but they're all incorrect. I think queer is just the proper one. How does it feel when a super well-known and respected member of the trans community turns out to be scummy as hell? It sucks, but then again, people are people. Like, that's always going to be a case. You know, the trans community isn't full of angels. You know, people are people. People suck. At what point has misgendering you no longer an accident? If you ask someone to call you by your pronouns, but they repeatedly get them wrong, where is the line you feel when they're doing it on purpose, or where you feel disrespected? You know what? I'll give the normies a really wide berth. You guys got, I'd say, half a year, because it's a big change. Half a year. That's a big one, and also I think that's enough time to really get enough of a change if it's practiced on a regular basis, and also if they don't stop themselves to try to correct it. Like, if they say he and go, oh, I'm so sorry, she. And sometimes you have to you have to tell them. It'd be better if they stop themselves, but sometimes you gotta say it. And if they go, oh, right, and they need to say it. They can't just say, oh, I'm so sorry. They need to say the thing that they just said, but in the correct sense. I think that's my bar. HRT, remove your penis. Yes, I actually got to ask this one. It is a fair question. It's a big fear for a lot of people. It was a little bit of a fear for me. So here's what I will say as like the quick shorthand. If you don't use it, you lose it. And like, yes, it can happen. It will most likely shrink. I am in a situation where I have half testosterone level. Like, I'm still like half a man, so it still functions for me. For people usually think about people who are male to female, full female level hormones. They usually have a lot of dysphoria down there, and they don't want to use it. So it will shrink, and they're usually just fine with that. If you are concerned about that, and you want to start transitioning, if you're in the same situation I was in, if you don't use it, you lose it. That may not be like, a proper way to say it. I mean, it could just like sometimes it could shrink a little bit, like regardless of how much you're using it. Nonetheless, you can feel pretty safe in the fact that it's not going to become like a Johnson to a Vienna sausage if so long as you like try to maintain it. Do you feel better after going through the major changes in your life, changing who you were to who you are now? I feel so much better. Guys, I cannot tell you how much better I feel. For all the people who keep talking about detransitioners and like how that's a thing, and they are valid and that is a thing that happens, but it is so incredibly blown out of proportion. I am so much happier after I started transitioning. You guys have no idea how much of an improvement it's made in my life. I'm much more confident in myself. I hate myself so much less. I think the biggest example of how much better I am is that I'm actually able to date people. That was the thing I've always been wanting to do my whole life, but felt like I couldn't. I feel like I can now. There's just like aspects of normalcy that is now open to me because of this transition. How do you deal with the daily increase of fascism across the globe invested in trans genocide? I'm trans and think about that constantly, so what are some tips you may have to deal with that? Healthy coping mechanisms ideas. I think about it very often as well. I mean, I don't need to think about it as often because, again, I live in a state that's very nice towards people like me, but you know, it is an issue when it's like, hey, what do we want to move to this state because they have houses that we can probably buy. You know, it's cheaper housing over there. Oh, wait, that's right. I mean, it's a not fun state for me. Hoo-hoo. I don't really know of any healthy coping mechanisms if you are in one of those states. Finding communities online is definitely my first. What the first thing I would do is, I'm hoping some of you will have some people who are currently in that situation and will show them my channel to at least get some sort of like representation, at least from me, because I have heard in the comments some people just watching me and seeing how open I am with it helps them a lot. Definitely explore your gender behind closed doors if you can. Now, I'm not saying you should do this because this is technically illegal, and in no way am I condoning this, but there are people out there who will take a very, very cheap sticker, like say this transgender flag sticker, a big old roll of it, go to certain places and just slap that in certain areas, which is incredibly wrong, and people shouldn't be doing that because that's illegal. But that is a way that we see people fighting against the misinformation around transgender people, and there's not a lot that we can do and you know, still be safe. There's a lot we can do that's unsafe, but there's not a lot we can do that is still safe. That's something that is of the safer variety that you should not do because it's illegal. How do you explain what NB is to older generations? I'm NB and I haven't found a great way to explain it. I don't. Here's my belief. If they are someone that is actually interested and wants to understand, they will listen, and maybe they won't fully understand it, but they'll at least have a better idea and be willing to listen. People who aren't willing to listen and who already come into this conversation thinking that it's stupid are not going to believe anything you say or understand anything you say because they don't believe you and they think it's dumb. It's really a matter of what kind of person you're talking to. You're not going to explain what being non-binary is and change their opinion on it at the same time. That is a very slow process. There isn't some magic combination of words where you're going to get them to flip to the other coin. In terms of gender, who/what group do you feel are like yourself? Like girl gang or with the boys? Legit both. It depends on what group I'm in. I kind of blend into both. I have two groups, legitimately. I have two groups, all girls and all guys that I hang out with. And there's groups that are like in like a mix where I kind of just like adapt to the situation. Like, oh, I get to hang out with the girls. Oh, okay, well, all this fun stuff about being a girl that I get to bring out. Cool. And then there's a group of guys and all the fun stuff that is about being a guy I get to bring out. It's kind of the best of both worlds for me. I just switch. I'm a switch. Did you struggle to accept it when you realized you were NB, or was it, oh, okay, moving on kind of thing? Or on a less serious note, do you have any stores/brands you'd recommend for non-standard measurements and figures? I don't have any stores or brands that I'd recommend. It all sucks. It all sucks trying to find clothes that fit you in a proper way. Learn to sew. That's the ultimate way to make sure everything fits you properly. Almost all of my shirts that I wear are fitted to me, that I sewed. For me, realizing it was more of just a slow, like, I knew the whole time, but nah, I really hope that's not the case. Please, that's going to be so difficult. And then everything I did to try to prove myself otherwise just affirmed that I already knew. So for me, it was always just a constant that I already knew, and more just me trying to desperately hope that, oh, it's not true. Please make it not true. Oh, God, please. Nope, it's true. Ah, shit. If you have dysphoria about your genitals, would it be really uncomfortable to do things like go to the bathroom or shower? Seeing as I do not have dysphoria, or at least not a regular enough dysphoria with my genitals, I don't know. I would imagine it would be. I think so. I have heard some stories of people who are like, don't even refer to it as what it is. Please refer to it as the thing that the opposite sex has. So I've heard that as a thing. It depends on the person. Do you feel like a girl but in a boyish way, but kind of like a boy in a girlish way, but not like a boy, but also not like a girl, but more of a girl or a boy, or sort of both, but kind of neither, but kind of like, yes, correct. That's it. That's it. You just described me. How does it feel to choose or feel your gender identity? I can't really understand it. I never felt like my gender being a part of who I am. Well, there is the solid possibility that you just may be a gender. You just may not feel like you have a gender. Because for most people, it comes pretty naturally. Or for some people, it's just they're cis and that is what they are, and they feel like they are that way because that is how they are born. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know who you are. But it sounds like either one, you are what you're born as and you're all set, or two, you just don't feel like you have a gender and you're possibly just agender or something along those lines. How do you feel when someone ships you with a friend / cartoon character or something else I forgot to mention? Also, have you seen Murder Drones and Hell of a Boss or Amazing Digital Circus all being indie animation? First of all, I have seen Amazing Digital Circus and I've watched every episode of Hell of a Boss. I have not seen Murder Drones yet. I've been wanting to make a video on Hell of a Boss, but I also like it so much that I kind of just want it to be a show I want to watch. And the moment I make it work, it becomes work. So when the Has Been Hotel Amazon show comes out, I will be making videos of that. For the actual question, when someone ships me with a friend or cartoon, if it's me, like, I'm going to make a distinction here. This avatar, this like goat furry Nekomimi sort of avatar that Dragon FU made for me, this is not me. This is a representation of me, but isn't actually like me. Like, if you want to draw like ship artwork of this with whoever you want, so long as it's not, illegal, like children or literal animals. Like, furries are slightly different. They have the ability to consent. Animals don't. It's like a weird distinction. It's odd. I'm not going to get into it. If you draw this, that's fine. If you draw me, that's not okay. Because then we start getting into the whole shade-based sort of deal again. And that's a whole can of worms that I'm not covering on this channel. You can find other people who have made deep dives into that guy. It's messed up. I think any works of actual people is wrong. You want to draw this cartoonish fake representation of me, that's fine. Because this I don't feel is me. So that's the ground rules I have for all you guys. Why do you think there has been an increase in trans individuals in the last 10 years or so? Because they feel safer to come out. I mean, there's so many people who are like, oh, back in my day, ADHD and autism wasn't a thing. Oh, it existed. We just didn't have words for it, and we just didn't know what it was. Like, it was there. Like, the reason so many trans people are coming out and on the rise, a lot of people see it as a trend. I argue it's because they don't feel like they'll be killed as much anymore. So they feel okay with coming out. It's not like it's just a thing that happened. It's like we finally have the words to describe what it is and what they're feeling, and they can sit there and go, oh, wait, yeah, that is me. I never would have clicked it, because I never would have known what non-binary was until I talked to someone who was specializing in it. And everyone, that is the entire AMA. All the uncomfortable questions, which honestly weren't even all that uncomfortable, I'm going to be frank. I expected a lot more questions along the lines of, does your dick shrink? How are you in bed? How does sex work between you and your partner? So, you guys were all decently tame. So next time I say uncomfortable, I mean make it uncomfortable. There's probably going to be some things I'm going to have to check in with my partner and say, hey, can I answer this question? No? Okay, I can't answer that question. Yes? Okay, I can answer this question. But next time, you can, I'm trying to make it to where, the doors are open. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share this with people who you think are questioning or confused or something. Even if you are almost absolutely certain they're just cis and straight, it's still good for them to be a little educated on what it is people like you and me are going through. And with all that being said, if I got anything wrong, like if you don't think like some of my definitions were correct, that's fine. Just clarify in the comments what you think is more correct. I'm just giving you guys more of a baseline of what to work with. I want to just start making any and all resources possible for people who are confused. And the only way to do that is by really putting myself out there and willing to be wrong. So that's what I'm doing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay beautiful and keep playing.